G'day everyone, welcome along to season 51 of my GAC top defensive teams. In this video I'm going to go over what I think are some of the strong defensive teams, even filler teams that you might even consider that you've already been using for a while, and you want to figure out, should I be placing them down? Should I not be placing them down? What do I do with them? Are they even worth placing down? There's some great questions to ask. I'm hopefully going to help answer some of these, and before we get started on that, I want to give a big shout out to my Patreons who make it possible for me to come here and do this. My Patreons, you guys are awesome. You guys have helped support me, and I'm doing awesome things here in GAC and all along with my GAC Big Brains team. If you guys want to be part of that, we want to start getting some extra information to help you do better at GAC, come along, check out my Patreon page and be part of the team. Anyway guys, moving on, let's start talking about all the different teams we're going to be finding out about this season, season 51. So the first one we got to deal with. It's the most powerful team around, and the legendary event for it have caused a lot of controversy. It is a really powerful team, and the Datacron is absolutely bonkers. It is a crazy strong Datacron. And the level 3 and level 6 don't entirely matter too much, right guys? Just remember just how good that Datacron is. You could even have not the right level 3 and level 6, or you just need his Bo-Katan Mandalore. You don't even need to worry about the stats. Just how good it is. I mean, there are ideal and optimal ways to make that Datacron, but honestly, the level 9 is just so good. But this team was already going to be good anyway beforehand. So I've got 3 different variations that I have of this team. Now, the variations are because based on what you kind of want to do on your defensive board. They will change a little bit based also what you may want to also do with Bam. I think that's really the key part of this is like, what do you want to do with Bam? Because his Datacron is also really good. And the ideal, I guess, like the meta or the top team, in my opinion, on defense is the team 1 here that I've got. With Bo-Katan Mandalore Paz, Bam, IG-12, and OG Bo-Katan. The OG Bo-Katan I think is really good there defensively because as soon as they assist, they all have a lot of recovery of their protection and health, and she provides days, and if you, depending on how you mod her, she can be just very annoying in this team because there's a lot of stuff going on in this team, especially calling to assist, so that can be very annoying. Number 2 team, I'm starting to think about like, how would you put this team down on defense without Bam? Bam is kind of like the really powerful piece here because those whistling birds, you can't really avoid them when you've got so many other threats to deal with. But what could you do that might make Bam, replaceable in the team? And I think Sabine, to me, in my mind, comes first in my mind. And Sabine is probably the best, but you have to make her relatively fast because what you need is those staggers out there pretty quickly. So you want high potency and you want her relatively fast. A bit like how you wanted her with Sana. And where she was fast, had high crit chance, high potency. She's going to do a bit of work. She does hit hard. She is another armor shred on this team, so she can also work well in there. Again, I like to keep OG Bo-Katan in there. The good thing about this number 2 team is that it's still going to require a decent team against it, but you still get to keep Armorer and you still get to keep Bam. That's quite flexible on offense. So it's something to think about there. That is a good compromise if you think you just want to pull a decent team, maybe you want to pull a GL, depending on who you're facing. This, I think, could probably do work on defense. It may not be the strongest variation of it. It may also be probably the weakest, but it does give you options then for offense. I think this team here, number 3, is a little bit of a decent compromise. And I would almost consider maybe if you've got a really fast Sabine, high relic, good mods on Sabine, you may drop her out for Bo-Katan and just accept the banner bleed that this team might cause on defense. I think again you're going to struggle sometimes with I think there's a few counters there going to be for Bo-Katan, and without Bam on the team, it's going to be a lot harder to stop those counters. So this team, or putting, instead of OG Bo-Katan, putting Sabine in there instead with really fast, good mods on her, could be a good way to steal some banners even from those strong counters, and that's what a lot of this GAC season is going to come down to. Anyway, moving along, the next big one, obviously, and big winner from this current Datacron set is DTMG. DTMG has some variations into what you could do with him. You could do Dark Trooper in there, or you could do Death Trooper in there. Dark Trooper can be pretty nasty, right? Like, you're going to get 2 Dark Troopers out there and they're going to hit hard. The problem is, obviously, you lose Dark Trooper for your Imperial Trooper team, so it really depends on what you want to do with Lord Vader and Piet and a few other different things. Is your Trooper team actually even valuable? Are you going to use Iden on defense as well? And with already this DTMG team taking some of those core units for Iden, your Trooper team doesn't really have much left. So you probably want to consider what you're going to do here. What are your overall plans with your Trooper team along with Iden? You have to figure out how you carve that up. And I feel that probably DTMG Team 1 here is your most optimal team, and then gives you a strong Iden team. But your Imperial Trooper team is basically non-existent now, and you're probably going to want to put Piet with Lord Vader. That's where DTMG Team 2 comes in here, is that you do get Death Trooper in there, who is a strong unit in this team. He isn't a bad choice. Does a lot of annoying things for a lot of people there, and he can hit very hard, and especially when he gets that death mark out there. The biggest thing here is that you do get to keep Dark Trooper for your Imperial Trooper team. And with Iden, you can put Magma or Snow and a few other different units in there and still make a decent one with the Shortcron, which we'll get to at a later stage in this discussion. But I think these are the 2 prevalent DTMD teams that you're going to see on defense or even on offense. These 2 variations of the team basically can do a lot of work, especially with the right Datacron, and which I do talk about the right Datacron for DTMG. There's actually probably 2 Datacrons though, to be fair, but the right Datacron I do talk about in another video. Link is up there. Go check that out if you want to find out about what Datacrons you should be farming this conquest of the last season of this. Now, let's move on to another very scary team. The SWGOH team. If anyone knows about Chirrut and Bays back in the day, they were a pretty annoying team to deal with. And this Datacron is kind of bringing back that pain, and we all start to feel the pain of Chirrut's stick. And just like the Stormtroopers did in in his movie there with Rogue One. So, guys, that Chirrut Cron is a really good one. And this is the team you want to take, in my opinion, to basically do really, really nasty things. And what it does is it allows you to have Kyle Katarn for somewhere else. If you do want to place Kyle Katarn down there, you don't really want to break up the Rebel Fighters or Rogue One kind of faction too much and everything like that. The Chase team, one is kind of like both teams here are both really good. Like Cassian is a really good annoying part of the team, even though you're not putting him with K2, because K2 can actually go fine with Leia, for example. So you can actually break those 2 apart and use them here. And both these teams, in my opinion, are both very much similar. Like I've said before, Team 1 is the best version. In this situation, both teams actually have merit, because Kyle Katarn, I think, does an amazing job in this team and can make them hit really, really hard straight out the gate. Like, you've already got to deal with Chirrut, but if Kyle Katarn's also in there throwing his lightsaber and giving them lots of turn meter, they got turn meter from the Datacron, it's just all these things happening. It's a lot to deal with at first. So both teams work really well. Cassian in there or Kyle Katarn. I think that's a very flexible piece. But you can also even mix up things a bit here. You don't need to necessarily put Kara in here. You could put SRP in here. And you could even use this team on offense. This team on offense could do a lot of work as well. I think we're going to see some use cases for players using this team on offense as well. The counters to it are very few and far between. I actually almost think that a lot of GL struggle at it compared to a B team. So, yeah, I will be interested to see how this team plays out. But moving along, we've got the classic. We've got the classic, guys. We all know Rey. Rey is comes and goes. Obviously, the last with Set 11, she was at a very scary moment. You had to be very careful. You'd almost overkill her with another GL, Leia, JMK. You had to send in something good because she was really strong. She's probably the biggest loser from this last 2 Datacrons that it sets her out there. The only thing you can really do to make her difficult is really put deflection on a Datacron. And so what does that mean? Having deflection on a Datacron is going to make it very annoying, because obviously JTR stacks it up, Sortie stacks it up. There's very permeations of this team you could put down. There's even a very spicy one, which I think is that you could put BAM in there. A good BAM deflection cron with BAM in there. That one I haven't really talked about, mentioned there. I don't know how well that's going to go. That could be complete flop. I'm interested to see what happens there. But there has been times in the past where Bam in the Ray team has actually been kind of annoying and useful to have in there, especially if you had like Sortie in there as well. It can be a very annoying team, even with L3. There's so many. Sortie, L3, Barris, you know, all the different versions of this Ray team that you would have seen out there. You could think about it, if you've got a high deflection con, that's really the key part of it. It really depends on what you're trying to pull with that Ray team at the end of the day, because a lot of these variations are weaker to one thing than they're weaker than the other. So you have to look at GAC history in SWGOH, look at that and find out which team of Ray you want to put down that's probably going to challenge your opponent the most. Because also, remember, if you're playing at a higher level, your opponent is likely to have an accuracy cron. So always bear that in mind. Maybe check your opponent's data crons. If you want to put a high deflection cron down, don't think it's a one and done deal that you're going to guarantee to win. They could have a high accuracy cron and be able to undo all that. But it's still worth putting down, because then they have to use that, and it's a bit trickier than using some other cron that would make it easy. So Ray, really kind of, you need to go with the deflection. But moving along, guys, let's go have a look at Iden. Iden's another big winner back. Like, Iden seems to come and go, you know, with these datacrons and Empire. Empire is obviously a recurring theme and will continue to be a recurring theme in a lot of datacrons. And so her usefulness in GAC offense or defense just keeps going up and down. And I think the Iden team is just a fantastic team. I really love the Iden team. I put a lot of relics into the Iden team, a lot of great mods on her. She does a lot of work. And Iden, to me, I think the best team is going to kind of be a mix of either Death Trooper or potentially Snow Trooper or Magma. I think Death Trooper is the best version of Iden here. It typically does the best, especially when you've lost Stormtrooper. Stormtrooper I have used for a long time with Iden, Storm and Shore Trooper. It kind of like made Wampa very hard to do, almost very much a timeout risk. And there's a lot of battles that or matches I've won just simply because of what Iden, Shore and Stormtrooper could do on their own. And I've won a lot of matches because of that. Shore Trooper, Iden, Stormtrooper, you can't do that one with us anymore with DTMG. You have to then take Shore Trooper with probably Colonel Stark and Range Trooper. Now, Range Trooper is a bit of a secret sauce here. Now, the reason Range Trooper works here is not just because just who he is. Yes, it's part of that, but it's actually a very fast Range Trooper with good offense and a bit of crit chance. The fast Range Trooper is very annoying for a lot of teams to deal with because there's a lot of protection, health, recovery. So definitely look, if you're going to run this team, try and look and see how you might make Ranged Trooper a little bit faster. But I think the ideal version is with Death Trooper, which allows you then to put Dark Trooper with your DTMG team, but then that breaks your Imperial Trooper team. So you have to think about how you do this. You may want to just put Snow Trooper or Magma in there and just call it a day on Iden. Just leave it at that and then have 3 decent teams available. Basically, it really depends on what you have, your plan, and what your opponent's doing. So there's always a caveat with these sorts of things. So I just want to just make sure that you get that clear. Iden's a very good team, but there are variations to it that you could probably choose. Now, I think one of the other big scary teams that I want to talk about here is Reaver Inquisitors. This team is actually, I don't think sometimes people really grasp or how dangerous this team is going to be on defense with that 400% offense datacron. That is going to be very, very, very scary. Very, very scary. And you're going to want to have a really good team to deal with that. It's also a really good team on offense with that cron, but it's really much just a really crazy overkill with that datacron. She's just going to be so good. And there isn't really any other variations of this team. It's always this team. There is no variations to this. So it's always this team. Check out my information again on the PDF. Go check that out where I've got all the details there for the datacron. I also have the video that I've talked about before. It's also going to be in the description where I talk about the right datacron that you want to get there for it. But the Reaver Inquisitor team, that is going to be an absolutely nasty team on defense. Just in even banner stealing alone, it's going to be really good. You're going to need to overkill that, and I think a lot of GLs are going to struggle at it. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting, guys. We've got a Sith team. Now, the variations and permeations, you want to call, of the Sith team are quite varied, right? Like, there is a lot of variations you can do to the Sith team. And I think that kind of rolls around just the usefulness of the Vaj. And once we've got Bane very soon, even what I'm saying right now is all going to change. I'm going to do an update once Bane comes out as well, because Bane is going to change things. There is no way that Bane doesn't change things here. But for now, these are the two teams I kind of really recommend as the Sith team. But you don't really need to do this. In the PDF file, there is information on the 4 different teams. I just wouldn't want to get into it here because what you want to do with the Sith team is so versatile, because Gidmay is basically dead with Doubt. Doubt basically kills Gidmay. So if you're going to place any of these teams down, the various variations of them, as long as you have Doubt on there, they can't Gidmay, and they're probably likely using Gideon anyway with DTMG. So let's go crazy with our Sith team. You could probably make 2 to 3 teams that will do very well, and they will steal banners. That is one of the great things, especially with Doubt. So these are probably the 2 strongest variations that you're going to put down. And remember, you have less teams, obviously, than in 3v3 that we've just come out of. So you could probably just put these 2 teams down. That would be enough. But there is potential to make 3 teams out of all of this. It'd just be a little bit weaker, and I don't think it's entirely worth it. So check that out. Check out my video on the Datacrons. That is a really good team that's going to help steal some banners for you. And they're what they call the good banner stealer team. And this is all that kind of category that I'm getting through right now. They're good banner stealers, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily going to get you a hold. A lot of people know how to deal with these teams, even with Doubt. So don't think that they're just going to print you holds. These aren't going to print you holds. What they're going to print you is 60, 61, 62s, and at best case, maybe a 63. And they probably overkilled it with something really good to get that. Even Cal is going to lose probably some banners on that Malgus team. So next one after that is dealing with Bam. Well, we talked about it a little bit before when I was talking about the Ray team. Now, I think Bam is one of these kind of wild cards, and I think people are going to use him very interestingly this season. And I think you got to watch out for it. I think Dash Bam is going to be a seriously interesting team, and it could do a lot of work on either offense or even defense. That Datacron is really good. Again, check out my video talking about Datacrons. Check out the PDF here. But this team could do a lot of work, and it could be proved to be a very annoying team because you've already got Hondo in there. You got the mechanics of Vandor, and then you got Bam, who's probably likely going to go into birds, and you're not going to be able to do much about that. And you're probably going to have to overkill that team. So Dash Bam has a lot of usage. I do actually have some more discussion on that team a little bit further down and the various permeations, but I want to basically just call that out. That's a pretty good banner stealing team, but there are some other instances where you may want to keep this team on offense, and I think there's some good use cases there. So we won't dwell too on there. I want to talk about it a little bit later down because it is also considered a bit of a filler team based on what you want to do. It's kind of both. It just really depends on where you're at with the game. So Dash Bam is kind of just like this team. I'm not entirely sure how much effectiveness we're going to get out of it on defense because there are a lot of options for people to deal with it. The next team I want to look at is GAC. Now, GAC keeps diminishing at this moment in just his usefulness on offense and defense. Unfortunately, GAC kind of is relegated to defense, and he's a decent banner stealer, a good banner stealer, especially if you take the potency up on set 12. Without set 12 potency up, he's likely just to get destroyed by GAR ISC. Or more Mandos, considering that most people aren't going to take Lord Vader on defense if they see that you have Bo-Katan Mandalore. So this one is kind of really dependent on your Datacron. You really need that set 12 to make it a decent banner steal, and you just have to make sure that your opponent doesn't have some crazy amount of tenacity Datacrons. They've not fully gone crazy with the tenacity modding on their GAR ISC. Even then, it's still a risk for them to take it if you have potency up. So this team is kind of really dependent on that. But you could also put Krex in there or keep it just vanilla with Echo. Sometimes I like having Krex in there just to make the GAR ISC variant a bit trickier, but it really depends on what you want to do with Captain Rex. All right, moving along. Let's go to Trench now. Trench team with the Doubtcron. I think he's going to be a good banner stealer. A lot of talk that he's going to be pretty scary. I think you're going to need a good counter for it for sure, and you're going to want to make Dooku fast, make Trench healthy, Django hit hard, make him not too fast as well. You want to make him sit in that DI, make people sweat a little bit on that, and make sure he can get a rocket out, flame, steal some banners, allow Trench to do his magic. I think this team is going to be very annoying with Doubtcron, and with 5 of them, you're going to see how annoying that is, and even more. So definitely mod your Trench for survivability, health, protection, tenacity, whatever you can do to make sure he keeps alive, because the more he stays alive, the more annoying he is. And hopefully when he's on defense, puts tank tech or health tech on him, mostly tank tech, but there's a bunch of different ways that team could be dealt with as well. So it's a good banner stealer, most likely, just because of what it's going to take to kill it. Alright, then we got the Lord Vader and GG Stap. These are basically fall under the category of filler banner stealers. I don't think they're always going to steal too many banners. In fact, you could almost argue that these two teams are probably likely going to be put on offense, depending on what your overall plans are. I think Lord Vader, like Rey, has kind of lost out a lot in his defensiveness. And the reason Lord Vader has lost out is, as we know, Bo-Katan. His Datacron that's available there isn't too bad. You've got max health damage, 400% extra offense. There's all these things that could make Lord Vader really good, but Bo-Katan just says, yeah, nah, doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter, mate. I'm going to kill you. You don't even need... I'm not even going to, we're not even going to have a back and forth discussion about this. I'm just going to completely destroy you. And that is what Bo-Katan can do. But if your opponent's going to put it on defense, you know, you could put a strong team of a strong Lord Vader team down there on defense. However, JML with Cal, pretty strong against it. Bounty Hunters with the Set 12 can do some work, but Doubt does make it very hard. However, again, your mileage may vary based on where you're at, mods, your relics, your Datacron that you are using here. Lord Vader is something you need to consider because on offense, he can solo a lot of things, and then you can also use Maul with the Mandalorians to do a lot of work as well. So consider that at Lord Vader on offense with Maul to take there can do a lot of things. It's two really good teams and actually quite efficient too. And Maul is very good on offense. GG Stap, on the other hand, GG always takes banners. With Stap in there, he's going to go back to that kind of banner stealing annoyingness because Bad Batch is even going to probably do a ride against it, but may have some troubles. It really depends on how well you modded your Stap, all that sort of stuff. But Stap could cause some challenges there for Bad Batch. I'm interested to see how that goes. I think Stap was obviously there to try and help make Bad Batch a bit harder, but we'll see. We'll see how that all pans out, right, guys? But I think GG Stap, if you don't have him at Relic yet, you could put this team on defense and expect, with Doubt, to get a few banners stolen, because that's just what GG does, and Doubt just elevates that even more. So definitely something to consider putting down there. Again, depends on your overall plan. These two teams are probably the weaker teams to put on defense, being filler banner stealers. So yeah, other teams, these are kind of getting at your really kind of filler teams. Again, we're going to cover over Dash, Bam, and a few of those who I consider are going to be kind of filler. But let's stay on here. We're going to look at Sana up first. Sana, Rolo, ST Han, Hondo, Nest. They're your kind of core team that I've typically seen with this. You could even put Rebel, Captain, what's his name? The Captain Han. You could put him in there instead of saying Hondo or Nest if you want to use Hondo, like I said, with Dash or Dash Bam. I mean, there's a few variations to this team and how you want to run it. I kind of think that basically the core three are obviously Sana, Rolo, and Stormtrooper Han. The other two are really kind of dependent. You could throw Kara in there. Obviously, there's a lot of synergy with Kara in there, but that really depends on what you're doing with Saw, Che's team. If you don't have that Kron, then you may put Kara back in here, and you may want to run with a set 13 or set 12 Datacron. it kind of really doesn't really matter too much. I think the Rebel one's kind of good. There is buffs given out, but obviously not too many. I think that the Scoundrel Cron or the Rebel Cron can go well. It really depends on your depth. Remember, this is a filler, so don't try to think about it too much, right, guys? So on that note, let's keep moving on. Tarful, unfortunately, has been relegated in usefulness even further. But if you put GG Stap down and they use Bad Batch on that, and then what are they going to do with Tarful? Well, there's a few variations of what they could do with Tarful, but nothing as clean and easy as Bad Batch. So there's something to consider. This is a filler team. I don't expect it to do really well, but if you're going to use this team, try taking the prod up and maybe some crit damage or resistance, because resistance is going to go into their defense and that stacking defense that they get. And so it's going to make Zalbar hit really, really, really hard. So something to consider out if you can get that. And also deflection can make this team a little bit more annoying to deal with. Anyway, going on. Zori kind of just usefulness on offense, defense, kind of like all sorts of things. Since her Cron has gone long ago, her usefulness has kind of been just a little bit of a banner stealer, team puller, whatever you want to call it. It kind of faded from obscurity, but if you want to do this team on defense, definitely recommend you need a set 12 ability block. Otherwise, you're going to have Malgus kind of run roughshod over it. It's pretty easy to deal with. Again, depends what your opponent's going to do. Maybe he keeps Malgus on defense. Now he has to think about something else here to deal with Zori. And there are a few ways to deal with Zori, but if you have a really good Cron, especially with high deflection, it's going to get a little bit dicey, because if you let Zori get going, it's going to hurt. Also, you could run with crit damage. You could run with tenacity on the Cron. It's not going to matter entirely too much, but I think deflection, in my opinion, at this stage, seems like the best one to do, because you're going to want to, like the Cron that people aren't going to go in, they're not going to have heaps of accuracy Crons. So if you have a bit of deflection, 30-40%, you get a couple of dodges or anything, that can change that whole battle, and then the Resistance Zori team just gets going, and that's a whole nother team to deal with once they do. So could be a good team, bit Datacron dependent. I would still consider it a filler. Still consider it a filler, guys. Alright, moving on. Let's go. Qui-Gon Jinn. We all had high hopes for Beck enhancing this team in GAC. And unfortunately, it hasn't entirely, because you can do dash team on it. You can do a few other things. Bad Batch is pretty much taken out now because of just the way Keller and Beck works. But otherwise, you may even do a Lord Vader Royal Guard on this team if you're facing a really strong one, and you could just obliterate that, because obviously the Qui-Gon Omicron goes away when there's a GL present. So Qui-Gon on defense, I would say, yeah, like I'm saying, it's basically a filler team. I have a lot of fond memories of running the Turbo Qui-Gon team, but those days are far gone. And really, this team is here to try and pull a specific team and just basically be a filler. Nothing more. It may steal a couple of banners if Anakin is able to get his AoE off in time, but that really is kind of dependent on the battle for how your opponent goes. Alright, moving on from the Qui-Gon team. Let's have a look at the Dash team. Now, these are the 4 teams that I kind of said that we've got some variations here, right, guys? There are some variations here. Looking at Dash, Bam, L3, Vandor. Now, the 5th character could be a few different ones. Could be Kira, could be Young Han, could be Young Lando, could be a few different ones. Could it be Nest, Hondo? I think Nest and Hondo are like your strongest ones, but it really depends on what you're doing with the other teams that I've already talked about above. So you have to plan that out, what you want to do. I think those 2 are the best to make a lot of other counters to this team a lot harder. The next other team that I think is with IG-11 and Quill. IG-11 and Quill, we really basically make you have to put Hondo and S, because outside of that, it's easy trooper food. Though, to be fair, with the BAM Datacron, it will be a little bit hard. Now, these teams are all really dependent on the BAM Datacron, right? Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's 100% BAM Datacron that's making this actually back here. It used to be a bit more of a team back in the day, but now, without that Datacron, it would go back to being useless. And you could also run with a BAM lead instead of running with a Dash BAM team. and you could put something else in there as well. Again, you could put Nest and Hondo. I think in that situation, you need Nest and Hondo there, guys. You definitely want to think about putting them there. The next one is looking at Dash, Bam, with L3, Vandal, and Young Han Solo. Now, why is Young Han Solo there, and why did I mention him before? That is because Young Han Solo, if you do make him fast with high offense, he can prove to be very annoying, and consider it with the protection up. He already recovers protection for the team. So if he gets going and actually moves and starts throwing the die, like, you know, his little, whatever, his lucky charm thing there, those little dice thing, if he starts getting going, he's got that prod up along with, you know, every time you bring them down, he's going to recover them. You bring them down again. Vandal's got prop recovery. L3's got prop recovery. You got Bam's ability there, putting DI on them. There's a whole bunch of unique, annoying mechanics that Young Han there can bring. Again, you kind of want to look at making him fast. And like, I'm talking 270, 280 kind of plus. Because then once he gets a few of those little dice movements, he's going to start going really fast. So definitely this team could be both good on offense or defense. It could prove to be a little bit of a banner stealer. But I, again, still think it could only just be a filler. It really depends on who you're against. All right, so SEE with this current Datacron set has a lot of variations, same as like what I talked about earlier with the Sith teams. You've got so many different ways to run them. The C variations here, Sith Empire, Traya, various versions of the Traya or Sith Empire, even some of them combined. Like, they've seen them kind of had this kind of big unholy matrimony where they've been mixed up, and it can be very gross to deal with. Like, you could even just put Malik in there and a bunch of other Sith, and it's a very tough team to deal with doubt. It could steal some banners. Again, though, SEE on offense is also very good and can do some work. So definitely a team that I want you to consider that's both defensive and offensive. It really depends on your plans. The Datacron you want to look at, definitely, like I said, set 13, doubt, stats, don't entirely matter. Crit damage, resistance, deflection, all these sorts of things to it. That's why I don't really touch too much in all these kind of details of the Datacrons. It is in my PDF, but there's a lot of variation for that C team. You really just want the level 3, guys. You just want that. That's the main one. All right, going on to Leia. Leia was super scary with set 11. Very annoying to deal with. We found some ways to deal with it, especially with SLKR Malicos. We also found some ways to deal with it with, obviously, when the Jabba-Cron, the Bausch-Cron came out with Jabba. So, you know, there was some really good ways. Now her Datacron's gone, and she's just kind of gone back to okay, still very nasty to deal with. But the team that you build around outside of R2 and Drogon are kind of really dependent on what you're doing for the rest of your board. And you could run Old Ben in here, you could run Mon Mothma in here, you could run K2 in here, you could run Krex, Baze, you name it. There is a lot of options here. Now, the reason I may suggest not to run Baze, and he's my last choice there, is that without SRP, if you use some of the other teams, or the one I'm about to describe below, you're going to need to have a tank for Adrad if you want to use Adrad. And Adrad on offense is very versatile. So Old Ben Mon Mothma kind of makes a lot of sense, but Mon Mothma can actually do a lot of work with the Biggs Cron. So there's a lot of room to move there. You've also got the Krex Cron. But you have to settle something, or that you choose to take Leia on offense and then break up the team further from there and have more flexibility, because obviously the Bausch Jabba-Cron is still a thing right now that we're dealing with, and so her usefulness on defense is kind of getting relegated quite a bit. So I would say you could use it on defense. It's based on your plan again, but I would actually lean more towards offense with Leia. Then we want to go look at something really spicy. Something really spicy, guys. That's this Wedge team with the Bodhi Datacron. Bodhi is going to be a real pain in the ass. There is a lot of hope for Bodhi to be good with his Datacron. Whether it actually turns out to be any good, this is a spicy team. Take it at your own risk. You need relics. You need also the Omicron, in my opinion, on Rex to really get them going, because he is a big part of it. So just really consider this team. I wouldn't say it's going to necessarily be good. I don't know yet. It's kind of just a spicy team that the one of my Big Brains team members, Renee, came up with. use it at your own risk. If you've got the Bodicron, you've got the relics, you want to try it out, see what happens, you want to trick up your opponent, this may actually do something. I'd love to hear back your feedback on that, guys. So that kind of wraps up all the teams, guys. My quick sort of overview as I tried to get through it very quickly. And we've got a lot of teams in there that can do a lot of really cool things. I think this is going to be a very interesting season. I look forward to hearing what you guys think. And look, as I said, please do like and subscribe to this video if you have appreciated what I have said here. And I know that there is a lot of GAC yet to come, and I'll probably make another updated video like I said about Bane. But I do wish you guys all the best. And if you have not seen any of my content before, you've not done any, you've not seen them, been in my Discord, you've never seen any of my Twitch streams as well, please come and hang out with me on Twitch. Love to see you, love to hang out with you and talk. Come hang out on my Discord server. I do run a GAC tournament, and we are going to be starting sign-ups for this season soon, and I do give away prizes to the winners of this GAC tournament, and that includes Hotbot subscription, Omega Bot subscription, and a few other goodies that are to do with my services. So again, guys, please do like, subscribe, come check out my Discord, come hang out with me. But all the best, and may the force be with you for your GAC Season 51. See you guys.